Hi guys, welcome back to my channel in another body painting tutorial. Today's look is on this somewhat soft, peachy Dream Catcher. She has a little spiritual festival vibe. All the products will be listed in the description box down below, so if you want to learn how I did this, just keep on watching. I started off with an ombre effect using water activated paint by Mayron, and I painted my body white with a whitewash, and then gray on my forehead and peach on my cheeks. Then I used clown white from Krylon to stamp on my cheekbones and my chin line to really fade in those ombre lines. Then I take Grip from the Vice palette from Urban Decay. I really feather out that gray line onto the peach and into the cream paint. Now to contour your cheeks, your neck, and your collarbone, I used my beloved peach palette from Too Faced. Oh my god, this palette is amazing. It smells divine. I went back and forth between just peachy and candied peach. And I also used Fastball from Urban Decay's Vice palette. It's like a peachy pink color. Then I used Urban Decay's Gunmetal to define my temples, contour my nose, and my forehead. And then for a highlight, I used NYX Cosmetics Loose Pigment in Luna down my nose, my cheekbones, and my Cupid's bow. I made a charcoal gray for my eyebrows and painted those in, or you can use an eyeshadow for a softer effect. And now the fun part, the body paint and the dream catchers. Using a fine liner brush, map out a circle and a half circle on your neck, which is not an easy task because it's totally lumpy, and good luck with that. But I used a white eyeliner pencil first and then followed it exactly with the gray paint. Use a reference guide for a dream catcher to figure out where you want to put your ribbon weaves. You can go really intricate or you can stay a little bit more simple. Try to keep your line work super clean by just making sure your lines are the same thickness. I made it easier on myself by mapping out little dots like a clock so that little points ended up even as I went around. Then I randomly painted on the dream beads in light blue and teal in large and small. Then for the feathers, I take a white eyeliner pencil and I map out the very center of the feather, making them a different size and swooping to different directions, make them look more realistic. Using the white line as your center guide, start forming these lines that are like upside down V's, and they feather in together at the very tips. Continuing with those motions on top of one another so that they look like they're truly feathering into one another, and then take it down to the very tip and start taking it to a swirl, making the feather go into one direction with a super cute little curly tip. Then let that dry and go in with some of the orange and the pink over the top to give it a few highlights. Being sporadic with your motions so that you don't cover up too much of the gray and muddy it up. Letting that fully dry, Then go back in with some white water activated paint and give it some highlight strokes. Then I add a white line down the center for the feather's spine. Then with a tiny angled brush and some Corrupt from Makeup Geek, I add a shadow around those white lines to make them pop out. Then to make the rings look like they're wrapped in fabric, I start making these little diagonal black lines all the way around the rings, and then white lines in between the black lines. Then with Makeup Geek's Corrupt and a detailed brush, I add a little shadow around the beads and where the ribbon meets the ring. Then with some white, add some little tiny highlights to make the ribbons stand out from the ring. Then add a few beads to attach the feathers to the ring and then highlight them. Then I use my favorite contour palette by Lunatick Labs Cosmetics and the coolest shade and form a shadow ring around the first Dream Catcher. Notice how the shadow falls underneath the Dream Catcher, and then when it gets to the top, it is still underneath. It's the same size ring, you just want to adjust it downward. Continue the shadow to the top Dream Catcher, but I decided to stay away from the realistic shadow underneath the feathers. I was concerned that it would become a little too busy. This part I kind of went just off the cuff, the beaded necklace. I wanted to add just kind of like a one shoulder piece, knowing my hair was going to be sort of off to one side. And I wanted the beads to be black with white highlights. I love how that looks. Dripping beads usually look the best when you start out with a large bead and then work your way down and cascade into smaller ones. This is truly how you can make your look unique. You can do different color beads, you can do different shapes and different sizes. You can get your own vibe this way. I also wanted to add some little ribbons at the end with some more little random beads. I also connect all of the beads with an ultra fine little black ribbon line, and I squiggle it out so it's not perfection. I'm randomly adding more beads as I go and continuing to connect them, and then going over the dots if they become misshaped. Continue making bead and ribbon dangles and connecting all of the pieces together so that it looks really even. I also wanted to add some focal points, so in white eyeliner, I added a teardrop and a oval shape for a stone gem. Kind of adding some of those beaded necklaces, attaching to the stone gems, even though they're not there yet. Then with water activated paint, I add white highlights to every single black bead, and the larger ones should have a larger highlight. Make sure to make the paint creamy so that the highlights don't fade right into the black paint. Even though in body paint the repetitive things get boring, it's still important to pay attention to how clean you're making the dots. It just gives such a overall better look. Then with light blue, I fill in the oval shape for the stone bead, and then I do teal for the teardrop. I outline both stone beads with silver paint by Mayron. To make the stones look realistic, I take a darker eyeshadow of the same color of paint and add the shadow to the bottom of the stone. Then I add cream white highlights to the tops of the stones, and then I pat it out with my finger, adding a little bit more eyeshadow and then blending them together. Making sure to set the white cream with white eyeshadow. With a tiny angled brush and some Corrupt from Makeup Geek, I form a shadow in between the stone gem and the silver outline. You can always clean up the line by adding a little bit more cream highlight and then setting it with the white eyeshadow. With the water activated paint, pop on the white bright highlights. Then what's left of the Corrupt on your angled brush, form a shadow around the silver part so that the gem pops off the skin. Then sit back and enjoy your work, because your chest piece is complete onto the face. NYX eyeshadow base and Makeup Geek's Sharkbait in the crease. Then the caramelized peach from my peach palette on my transition area, and then I kind of work it a little bit up onto the brow bone, and then I add a little bit of the Just Peachy as well. I highlight the inner corners with the NYX Luna Loose Pigment. Off camera, I added some NYX Liquid Suede in Tea and Cookies to keep it pretty neutral for the lip. I start a little faux cut crease with Makeup Geek's Corrupt, and then I blend it upward. Just adding more product and blending it out. You know the drill. Then more NYX eyeshadow base on the lid so that the Luna Loose Pigment will stick to it. Then some Corrupt on the lash line and smudge it out a bit. Add a feather dangling from one eye and follow the steps as before. And then add some ribbons and beads, connecting them all. I also added some in between the eyes and then did kind of like tribal dots over the eyebrows. I also add these little water gems, they're iridescent. I also add some white ribbons and some teal and blue beads. In silver, I put a little tribal stripe on my lip and some dots on my eyes. Then I add some contact lenses by Camo Eyes and my wig and accessories, and then I move on to lashes. These are NYX Cosmetics On Another Level. And then Jumbo Eye Pencil in Blacking by NYX in the waterline. Then just adjust your wig, and holy smokes, we're done. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please make sure to subscribe, but most importantly, follow your passions and your dreams. Life is super short.